We're going over system concepts, Article 39, Contradictions Between Phases. As we learn from more and more of the original sources in the study of the system of the soul's evolution, Kabbalah, we will find concepts that appear to negate each other. In one example, often found, there is a tendency to discount our own internal questions, with first having a knee-jerk response that we should immediately follow, without any scrutiny, the strictest opinions, feeling that those who have studied longer know best. Therefore, their judgment should be followed just to be safe. It is important to go above that initial response. This is one of the most detrimental of contradictions that is evident between the phases. It is imperative that each person value their personal scrutinies, the criticisms that arise within them, and organize their concepts accordingly, within themselves and with others, also researching the system. Without this, advancement through to a next phase is in stalemate. And here's a quote. Although I do not tend to offer private guidance, I must still comment on what I have already warned you several times. No one should shed the novelties in the Torah that he attained, nor should he admonish whatsoever. Even the desire for it is a terrible flaw. The exception is what I've permitted while I'm away, to share novelties in the Torah with one another from what I've already said, as accurately as can be explained, but very precisely, without any additions of one's own. Also, you must not speak of the words of Torah that I said, and which that friend has not heard from my mouth. He should be educated attentively and wisely. I find it necessary to warn about the above, because I feel that you have already stretched the line that you have given to yourselves. Know for certain that by this keeping, you will be granted with saying novelties in the Torah before the Creator, and to admonish yourselves. But one who scatters his qualities in those will not be established in the eyes of the Creator. In that matter, an ounce is as much as a pound, and the Creator will help you and guide you to the doors of truth. Letter number 50 by Bala Sulam. This emergence and acceptance of the scrutinies and criticisms is a clarification or cleaning of what our uncorrected ego perceives and what our future corrected self, our soul, is whispering to us. And as in any dichotomy, when there is a separation between two, a scrutiny or criticism is an automatic and natural response and should not be ignored. However, due to dogma based on misunderstanding surrounding the study, our first response is to typically think that we should not be clarifying or cleaning concepts with fellow students, since it seems to appear obvious to others that Bala Sulam states in his writing that it's not permitted to share the novelties in the Torah. This is an incorrect assumption, since this is not the issue that Bala Sulam has written about. The problem is that instead of applying scrutiny, others are creating rules and regulations, nor should he admonish whatsoever, and these are being accepted without any personal thought. The system is in place to bring the human species to actual independence, and the interaction between two or more with these discernments is necessary for their success. However, doing this scrutiny with someone who has not yet come to the desire to become conscious of the concept of the system laws would be impossible to discern with, and it is this that is clearly not recommended. The discernments can only be done effectively with another that is also desiring to consciously develop, as this independence is attained only if it is consciously desired. The current general population who want what they have in their current sense of security, where someone else is making all their calls in their lives, will not pass through the barrier to independence. Additionally, it is not the goal to be discussing what should or should not be done. It is about applying personal criticism, discernments, and scrutiny to what is being learned. Even recognizing that a particular article is not personally understood is also a valid discernment. And here's a quote. One learns from one's soul. It is known that the whole Torah is studied primarily for the needs of the soul, meaning for those who have already been awarded a discernment of the soul. However, they must still crave and search the words of Torah of others who attained, to learn new ways from them, which the previous ones have invented in their innovations in the Torah. Thus, it will be easy for them to advance in the high degrees, meaning that through them, they will advance from degree to degree. But there is a Torah that is forbidden to disclose, since each soul should make that scrutiny by itself, and not have that scrutiny done for it by another. Hence, before they make the scrutiny themselves, it is forbidden to disclose to them the words of Torah. This is why the great ones hide many things, and except for this part, there is a great benefit to the souls by what they receive from others' innovations of the Torah. and one learns from one soul how and what to receive, and to be assisted by others' innovations in the Torah, and what he himself should innovate. 77. One learns from one soul, from the book Shemati by Bala Sulam. We do know what we can disclose, only the system's laws. We are meant to be scientists. We are meant to consciously test our own perceptions by incorporating every sensation into the system laws. That is what the group is for, a laboratory to discern how the creator system functions, and how, without being conscious of it, the feeling of being manipulated and controlled exits instead. The Torah that we are forbidden to disclose means that it is unable to be disclosed, not that it is a taboo and that some punishment will ensue. It is not possible to disclose another's personal discernments of the Torah system's laws, but it is possible and correct to disclose the dynamics of the system laws that can govern all of humanity. Also in the writing, the Creator cannot change his rules, and the laws are absolute. Should not be construed that the Creator is some kind of outside deity who might punish or reward. Instead, by internalizing the Creator, the system within us, we learn how we operate. We no longer waste precious time trying to figure out how we are operated on. And here's a quote. As for separating love of friends from the work of the Creator, I do not understand it at all, because it was never the custom with Bala Sulam to connect those two together. On the contrary, it was always forbidden to speak words of Torah or of states of greatness and smallness among the friends. Our way has always been walk humbly. It was barely permitted to speak of matters of work among the friends, as said in several Bala Sulam's essays in that regard. Rather, the devotion of the friends was that of ordinary people, where each one cares only about his friend's corporeality, not about his spirituality. Drawing closer among the friends was actually through meals and drinking of wine, not through words of Torah. Therefore, I'm not sure what innovations you're trying to make. Perhaps until now you believe that for love of friends, there shouldn't be discussions or engagements in matter of work. Now you know for sure that that is the only way it should be, meaning by walking humbly. The way is as one who goes to his friend's occasion. He doesn't think of himself, whether or not he's in a good mood, but must take part in his friend's joy. He must not frown, but show a happy face. It is the same here. Bonding among the friends should be such that each wishes to delight his friend, precisely with corporeal things, since precisely here is the matter of buy yourself a friend. Make for yourself a Rav is a different story. That is, sometimes among the friends, one wishes to execute, make for yourself a Rav, toward another. However, this is specifically among friends who have great care and strict rigor. Not everyone is suitable for it. But this is no longer considered love of friends, meaning what love of friends requires, since there is no connection to the work, as he wrote to me. Baruch Shalom Halevi, son of Bala Sulam. From the letter number 37, from the social writings by Baruch Shalom Halevi Ashlag. The work involved with aligning to the system is not boasting or puffing oneself to others or lifting up the other, and is not lending to another to help them achieve physical sustenance in the world. This work is to develop personally, to be in the soul self. It is a serious effort to develop the connection to the system while in this life. The only way this can be achieved is through a process of serious work with another, who is also serious about his or her soul's development, studying and developing personally by applying the system laws, applying personal scrutiny and criticism when faced with them, and most importantly, desiring the goal of total adhesion with the governing system, the Creator. This need of working with another individual friend, desiring the same goal, is a necessity. Without this, we do not succeed. Three phases of friendship are evident. Phase 1, external. This is where we meet physically with friends, family, or online for activities. We have meals together, have outings together, help each other with physical sustenance on occasion. This friendship may wane and end, or wane for a time to pick up again later in life. This type usually focuses on common elements between friends that are purely external in nature. This connection is called the corporeal world, phase 1. Phase 2, external. This is also where we meet physically with friends or online for activities. We have meals together, learn together, but with no direct interpersonal interaction regarding the material being studied. Even if workshops are conducted, all answers are with quotes, abstract feelings, or recycled words. The mood of the friend is raised with a very general outlook, like saying there's no one else besides him, or everything is for the best. There's no need to find out the inequalities of the friend, whether pain exists. Finally, how to work together for the goal is never discussed but accepted as so by one prominent teacher. This connection is called the spiritual society, phase 2. Phase 3, internal. This requires a bonding to work. It requires trust in each other to help reach a combined goal together. Even though each person has their own personal perception and perspective, those thoughts and desires are mingled through joint scrutiny and criticism. The workshop questions are answered truthfully and to the point, taking into consideration the discernments of the others while making internal personal discernments simultaneously. This connection is called the group, phase 3. There is no coercion in the evolution of the soul. Any person can choose the phase of friendship they desire. A person can be in all phases for one friend, while relating in one of the other phases for another. Both external and internal environments are necessary in order to exist in balance with others. Both external and internal environments are necessary to the development of the soul. And here's the first workshop question. Why do we tend to not scrutinize our concepts? Cedric.
It's easier not to question what we think we know or what we believe someone else knows in terms when the other knows more than we do. And which at this point I believe, and at the end it will be our own. And if another person has their own concepts, those wouldn't apply to us at the state that we might be.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, I think Cedric pretty much covered it because, you know, out of respect, if we read like Baha Salam or the Rav tell us to avoid doing something, we're inclined to immediately take that on without doing the scrutiny. So it's good, like you say, phase 3 here, we could take a step back, check it, and do our own scrutinies. I guess that's just part of our natural inclination and another thing we have to overcome.
Maria.
I think that it's due to necessary conditioning that happened before, only in order for us to cross that warning sign, given a certain measure of maturity. Like I can remember telling the kids, don't do this and don't do that, but it was a restriction because of their current state. I see also parents, sometimes would tell them the boogeyman is there, and it was just a restriction for their protection, I guess. But at the end of the day, we have to. One of the things in Kabbalah that I clearly remember is, you just don't accept it just because we tell you. This is a research. You're going to be doing this, and you're the researcher, and you're the one who you're researching. So we have to get to a point where we have to scrutinize and not accept it just with below reason.
Mary.
Well, we tend to not scrutinize when we start learning about a subject. We acquiesce to whoever is teaching, assuming they've been studying longer and must know best, and that's all pretty normal. But at the same time, we do need to question what we're hearing and seeing, and for ourselves, because this is about ourselves and our internality, and so we need to ask all sorts of questions and scrutinize ourselves.
Moshe.
Well, I think it's easy to scrutinize new concepts. I think that's very natural. I would say it's probably more difficult to scrutinize concepts that you believe you've internalized because you feel like you know it already. And that's probably where it's more difficult. But again, that's where it's important to be in an environment that questions these concepts. And it's important to be flexible, and it's important to listen to others and gather other people's opinions and basically make make something out of it for yourself.
Rick?
It depends on the state where we're at, what phase we're in. In the beginning, you find that, as it was said, that you want to follow those who have been here before. You want to just blend in and become part of the society. Afterwards, you start to become comfortable and safe, so you want to stay within that safety and comfort. You don't want to have to do any work. You don't want to become managing the operation. You don't want to be the one that has to take on the workload. Then later on, you start to see that you need to get into these articles to understand them more. So you start to do some scrutiny and discernments, but it's very superficial. It's just, there's none other besides him, or that's what the Rob said, or something of that type. It takes time, and then when we get to the point of where we've grown, we start to get into where we get to understanding that to actually change ourselves, to come into alignment with the system, that we need to take and scrutinize what we feel and think about what's happening to us.
It's very comfortable not to scrutinize. And normally the reason we don't scrutinize is, one, it's very comfortable to live under the scrutiny of others, and that others have decided for me and they know best, and who am I, and I'm so low, and they're so great. And to be able to scrutinize, you have to have worth of self. You have to be worth something to even think. You have to have the audacity to scrutinize and question even the words of sages. And the idea is that you're not scrutinizing to prove them wrong. You're actually scrutinizing to internalize something. So you can't internalize something on face value. You have to internalize it by sort of making it your own. It's called writing the Torah on your heart. You have to make the concepts your own, and you can't do that if you don't scrutinize them. The second question, how do we help each other get over these false fears? Cedric.
Well, we shouldn't take anything for granted. I think that most of the time when we hear something, an idea, we just don't question it because everyone believes the same. And what I find instrumental to start working on that is to do the sermons with friends and to find people that have the same desire, which is basically very important, because otherwise just your own discernments won't do enough if you cannot work on them and make a contrast with what your friends with the same desire believe or think.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, I think this is where the value of the group comes into play, because, you have to discuss this, kick it around. It's, you can't do this by yourself, and that way, just by getting other discernments from other people, you can reflect upon your own. Thanks.
Maria.
The question is, how can we help others get over these false fears? At the end of the day, we're going to we can invite others and say, look, over here it's a much better place, but we each will have to go through the fears. We can help if they discerning or cleaning up the reasons why you should. I mean, I remember clearly, during phase one, I was conditioned, there's heaven and there's hell and you don't do this and so forth. And I had to, even despite, my immediate surrounding, everybody warning you not to do that, I had to take that leap of faith and say, I just have to search more. And it was something that was innate. Like, I was no longer satisfied with that I had to take this leap of faith, despite the fear, because there was fear involved, that I said, well, forget it, I don't care, I have to do this. So there's a level of saying, a level where we reach that we have to just go ahead and do it, because where we're at, it's just not enough. That does not satisfy us anymore. I think recognizing, yes, that there's a fear that has to be overcome, but what are you going to gain if you do it? This level of awareness or perception, I would not trade it back or let it go if I didn't have to still go through that fear. I would do it in the blink of an eye now, right? But then at that level, it wasn't like that, but now it is. So I would just say we're in an environment that we're promoting this to each other, and I think we'll convince ourselves once we know it was worth it to go through it. It is every day. We can see the value and feel the value and perceive the value as we move along.
Mary.
Sometimes, well, the contradiction between phases, if there's fears moving from one to another, we just, share with each other in clean concepts, and whether it's in a group or with an individual, and talk about it. Sometimes it isn't necessarily a fear, but just an uncertainty or something that needs clarification or confusion or whatever. But just by sharing with each other and talking about it.
Moshe.
Yeah, so listening to others, some people, they touched on it a bit. I would say, it really comes down to how important things are and how much value there is in sort of the end goal of what you're trying to achieve. I always think of fear of, if there was a baby trapped on a rooftop and the mother, had to rescue that baby, she'd go do it, even though it was pretty fearful and pretty scary to, let's say cross, over a roof or whatever, that, it's very dangerous. But again, there's a lot of fear involved. But again, she'd overcome that fear because of the importance of that baby or her child. So I think it's the same situation here where, it really comes down to really how important it is and how much value do you see in sort of, criticizing and having scrutiny on concepts to be able to overcome that fear. If that importance is greater than that fear, then you'll be able to do it and overcome it. And if not, then not so much. So really the goal is to show how much value there is in scrutinizing concepts and convey that to others.
Rick.
So how do we convey it to each other? That we need support and trust, that there's going to be times where you're going to be cruising along, all of a sudden fall into a pit of hell, and where everybody and everything is just inverted on you. You just want to push it away and run from it. So how do you find that hand that reaches out to you? How do you support that? By being here, and when they need to talk, you speak to them. When they don't need to talk, you let them have their space. But all the same, you engage. All the same, you share from your heart, just like you do every day. When you come here in the chats, it doesn't matter. It's just reaching out to each other, believing in each other, believing in the system, and supporting the system through each other.
The cause of our fears in advancement is always because of unclean concepts, misunderstandings, confusions, thinking that it should be one way when it's another. And the way we get over these false fears is by actually talking with each other. And sometimes we'll feel very closed in, and we'll feel like, oh, I can do this by myself and I can get myself out of this descent alone. And normally what happens is that the person can't do it alone, and he actually has to use the individual, the friends, to actually do that. And that requires trust, and that requires importance of the goal. And if you have that importance, then you'll sort of give up that sort of fake independence that you think you have, and actually clean concepts to reach true independence. Third question, how do we advance without pressuring others? Cedric.
Well, my experience has been that I cannot share what I know with another one that doesn't share my beliefs. And let me tell you, I'm totally ignorant in many subjects. So I need to understand that everyone has their own pace, and that we might be at a point where we share the same beliefs, but we have to, sadly, we have to let other people that we believe they know less than us to pick up their pace and catch up, because they will never be at the place where you are, since you have your own perceptions. That's it.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, would you repeat the question, please?
How do we advance without pressuring others?
Oh, well, keeping the first precept is there's no coercion in spirituality. You know, they're entitled to their perception at that time, and you know, we have faith we're all going to evolve into a future state. You know, as long as we keep working the program here, you know, collecting discernments. So, you know, that's it. You know, it's take it, not be judgmental of them. You know, but we still have to do our scrutinies ourselves.
Maria.
How do we advance without pressuring others? Are you talking about how do we personally advance, or how to help others advance?
No, how does a person advance without pressuring others to advance as well?
Okay. Oh, well, I think first of all, observing one's own level of immaturity to our current immaturity/maturity, and where we're headed, we start understanding that we all have this evolution, right, of maturing. So it gives me an understanding and acceptance of other previous phases, of not pressuring them and accepting them where they're at. But nevertheless, I remember having maybe this envy helps each other, and admiration, this observation that we see, wait a minute, that person, I'm observing how that person, like by your actions we will know you, and I'm observing the behavior. I'm like, oh, I think I want that. Oh, wait a minute, are they doing this? Whatever. We get this sense that they have something that we don't have, or this admiration, like how do they do that? And you're attracted to try to get understand that or perceive that. I think another thing would be, how do we advance without pressuring others? Like Jeffrey said, there's no coercion in spirituality. We can help each other be in an environment that'll give us this importance. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have the importance, even if you're in the right place, we're not gonna get there, right? So just being among those that we already understand, we're cleaning concepts, we're invested in each other. Everybody has different vision and way of looking at things, and we all gain from it. And yep, that's it.
Mary.
By realizing that everybody has their own, rate and journey, and are making their own efforts, and being respectful of each other, also being sensitive to each other. And one person might respond by having a little bit of pressure applied, and somebody else might not, might be more sensitive to it. It might turn them off or whatever. So by getting to know each other, but mainly by not judging and just being supportive when it's necessary.
Moshe.
I think the best approach to really deal with, avoiding sort of pressure on someone is more of an indirect approach. And I think in that way, meaning, again, it's about at least having that person at least stay in a certain environment, the right environment for that environment to influence them. And that's more of an indirect approach as opposed to, me sort of putting pressure on somebody. And, I think that would be more effective in the end. But of course, the decision is on the person. You can only do so much, and it's important for that person to make his own scrutinies and find his own reasons for it. because otherwise it's just a waste of effort, and it's better to put your effort somewhere else where somebody actually does want it and does need you. So, my thoughts.
Rick?
It seems to me that we can only work on our own personal correction. We cannot correct anyone else. So why would we want to pressure them when we don't even understand what it is that they need to change within themselves yet? So it would be much better to take and put our energies into our own work, our own concepts and perceptions of changing and aligning it, rather than trying to pressure someone else. Come to the understanding of where they're at, and, you know, in a indirect way, give them the pieces that they need to help them reach where they're going to, help aim them, rather than try to pressure them into anything. Just give them things that they can do for themselves while you work on yourself.
This comes to the idea of the covenant. Like sometimes what will happen is that someone will fall into a shell, for example. And when they're in the shell, their whole thinking process is skewed. And they might actually not want much help. So what you do is you sort of, you try and give them signals, and you sort of give them different points, and you might even actually flat out like tell them you're in the shell and stuff like that. But you have to be very aware of, are they allowing you to do it to them or not? And if they're allowing you to do it to them, then fine. Then you continue to push them and help them because that's what they want. And that's what they made a pact with you beforehand. But if they stop fighting too much, then you reach a threshold, and then you let them go. And you let them sort of handle it by themselves until they come back to actually ask you for additional help. And I would say that the most important thing, of course, is to focus on the advancement of ourselves. Normally when we learn about new things, we want to rush and tell everybody else. And we do that normally out of a validation, to sort of validate that, well, if our friends agree with it, then it's probably okay. And the idea is to really focus on advancing first, and for the person to reach into correction, then you can start helping others as well. What do you all think of the article?
I think it's good. I think it's important to have scrutiny like with the best, you know what I mean? With Baal Salam and Rabash, and not believe anything you read. I mean, but at some point you do need to have faith in them and their states. But it's a balance, you know?
Well, like they say, we have to own it. We have to do that internal work ourselves. You know, every concept.
I have a question. The lesson says that the system is in place to bring the human species to actual independence. And to be honest, I thought that the system would want us to be dependent. So which what is it? The system is wanting us to be independent or dependent?
The goal of the system is to want us to be independent. But until we're ready for it, it makes us dependent. Right? It's like a child at home. You want them to be dependent on you until they're ready to actually become independent.
Got it.
It serves the system more when people are independent than when they're dependent. It's like slaves are very nice, but to innovate, you need employees. And employees is a level above slaves, right? And then you've got like people who sort of, they give the services to the company. That's even higher than employee. Right? So you've got like different degrees of independence, and the higher the level of independence, the more innovation that can actually be done. I know that this concept was definitely an issue sort of when I was advancing, that sort of, oh, we don't talk to the friends and we don't talk to each other, and sort of sometimes you have to break the rules to find out that they weren't rules in the first place.
Yeah, it's all part of the incremental learning process as I see it. You know what I mean? You know, it's new information. We take it on. You know, this is phase 3. Phase 2 will be maintain that status quo.
Exactly.
But also, they always say that the teacher learns more from the students, but the student has a role also to be sort of critical, and then I think it's important for that to be around. I mean, of course, again, there has to be somewhat of a balance because, you're trying to reach states that your, teacher has reached. So you have to have, have faith in sort of what he's telling you. You know what I mean? But, I would say to try it out and see how things are working. But if things aren't working out for you, then I think it's important to be critical,
Exactly, and raise it and sort of see what can be done to move forward so that it is not just a repeat and rinse and just sort of hope for the best, but actually to sort of come and ask for more clarifications and more sources and to really understand the concepts and clean them more and more.
That's the difference, meaning the concept.
Well, don't we need to bring the concepts that are being written about into our own concepts, the way we've constructed our worlds, and then start to bring them into alignment with each other, blending them, mingling them, the hit Cali loop?
So you're always going to have, in any method you go to, you're always going to have a common language that is spoken between the friends or between the members, right? If you're learning maths, right, you're not going to call addition subtraction and subtraction addition just because you feel like it. You sort of have to learn the common language that you're dealing with. But when you're internalizing concepts, then you normally convert it to your own sort of language. And this happens not just with the language of, let's say, Hebrew to English, but everyone has their own personal, internal dictionary. But the idea is that when you're talking with others, you have to share a common dictionary. You have to know what is the definition of love, what's the definition of hate, what's the definition of connection, and so forth. Emotionally, you're going to have a different definition than others. But at least verbally and in the thought process, it has to be equal, and you have to be aware of the differences between how you internalize it and how others internalize it. And then that's basically the common denominator becomes that language. So in that, there is that annulment, right? You're not going to be like, oh, I want it to be a different language. It's like, no, you're not the language. The scrutinizing, criticizing is about taking a concept that you see outside and making your own and coming up with making that concept independent, which means you're not saying, oh, I know this concept because Zakai taught me. No, you know this concept because you've internalized it. It's your own concept. It's like you take the copyright and make it onto yourself. It's like it's now your concept. You thought of it. Yes, you might have been inspired by coming to learning concept from somebody else, but that inspiration is just the first level. And the second degree is to actually internalize it, make it your own, and say, this is my concept. And then if you have any problems with it, you have problems with your own concept, not with the concept of somebody else. It's not like you're coming to system concept and saying, I have a problem with this concept. Rather, you're having a problem with the concept that you're internalizing. And part of the problem is if people don't scrutinize and don't internalize, they never have any criticism, and they never internalize anything either.
Well, I think this article does highlight the importance of a phase 3 group, though. Why we have to, in order to advance, because phase 2 is not producing a lot of advancement, using their methodology. Maybe that worked back in the day, Baha Salam. Was his students crossing the barrier?
We don't know, do we?
Baha Salam?
We don't know. I would say that one of the important things is we're not afraid of raising the criticisms against system concepts, for example. This article is written to show that we are aware of things that we're doing differently. And we're aware of the consequences of it, and sort of we understand that it might be going against superficially of what Allah Salam and Rabash said. And it definitely is important for us to be aware that we know sort of what is our relationship with phase 2 and the differences between them.
Exactly. I think it's important to know, basically just to be honest about what we're doing here, and also that there is criticism and people are going to criticize, and and we shouldn't be sort of in the dark, really, you know what I mean? If somebody approached us and oh, you're going against what people are saying, and we shouldn't be so stupid enough and naive to be just like we're totally blind to it. I think it's important to be aware. I mean, like, everything is sort of, how you read and perceive the teachings, and how, you look at it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, yes, they might have a different perception of it, and so do we. So, but I think it's important to know the fact that, we're aware of the sort of the differences that may be perceived through others,
I think that leads back to the cleaning of the concepts and discernments, the scrutinies, because there's so many different ways that it's done. I mean, they do it so superficially with their little circle that you just add on where there's no scrutiny at all. And then they go into where you have others doing a reading, and it's just, they go over just the basic, whatever is at the top of the article is basically all they look for, and they'll look for one or two things relating to that. And it takes a lot more than that. It takes not only the scrutiny of the article, but getting beyond even that point where you're scrutinizing how the articles are affecting you, what you're hearing from system concepts, how it's internalized within yourself, how is it made your own rather than just being someone else's idea.
Yeah, I got personally no problem owning what I'm doing. I understand, my, what do you call it, difference between myself and BB. I accept it. So far they've accepted me, but I'm not raising any ruckus in the BB population either.
You could say the idea is to accept phase 2, but not agree with phase 2. So the difference is acceptance is for others, and agreement is for yourself. So the idea is that you accept phase 2, you understand it's part of the development, but you don't agree with it because that's not where you want to be.
Yeah, and it's only a portion of what I don't agree with them. They have a lot of value and merit. It's, like I say, all of us came from there.
Yes, we all grow from the ground.
Right, exactly.
Well, in the same way that we scrutinize, as we go through life, there's phase 1 where we're listening to things, and eventually scrutinize our way right into phase 2, and then we listen as we go and see what fits and how it applies to our life, and what we want to change, and how we want to advance if we're feeling a lack, and we scrutinize our way right out of there. So I think that let's keep that flow going, and in general, as to manage ourselves with others and independently.
Yeah, because there's going to be a percentage out of the group in BB2 that's going to want to evolve further, but so many of them are happy with what it is, and that's a beautiful thing for them. They're finding a lot of fulfillment and filling with it. Some of us just want more.
I think on that note, we'll end the session into the after party.